Welcome to Your Ultimate Life podcast, where we help you break free from mediocrity and create a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy. Get your free video series at yourultimatelife.ca.
Welcome to Your Ultimate Life, podcast created for you so you can build your ultimate life. What does that mean? Well, it means whatever it means for you. For me, it's purpose, prosperity, and joy. My life purpose at this stage is to reach you, 250 million people this year. Why? To help you realize who you really are. You're not just a regular average person with few prospects. You're a divine being with infinite capability, and so your possibility is endless. You know, I was just seeing parts of a show in the last little while. Joy and I were really enjoying it, called Dark Matter. And it's about the physics principle of superposition, which is things being in the same place at the same time. And it comes from the uncertainty around quantum particles. Everything exists in a wave-particle duality. And if I wax a little technical here for a minute, just excuse that. Wave-particle duality and the two-slit experiment where you measure light, you know, it looks like a wave or it looks like a particle, depending on how you measure it. Now, isn't that weird? It's not that weird. If I look at a piece of paper square on, it looks flat. If I look at it from the edge, it's a thin line. So everything, and what this whole understanding of quantum mechanics, quantum physics lets us realize is everything is as we measure it, or see it, or perceive, or interact with it. The act of observation is the act of creation. So think about that. So anyway, this dark matter thing, they create a chemical and a box, and the box is created to shield everything in the mind from any interference at all, electromagnetic or otherwise. And the chemical shuts down parts of the prefrontal cortex so that you're not thinking, gets rid of this sort of thinking thing, and how it shows up is a big long hallway with an infinite number of doors. And behind each door is one of the possible futures. Well, I've got a song I'm finishing right now called Wandering and Wondering. And it talks about the idea of life going by and, you know, wondering what would have happened if we'd made different decisions way back when, or yesterday, or 20 years ago. I used to think about a particular time when I was 8 or 9 years old, about a particular incident, and the incident doesn't matter, and wondered what would happen if I woke up and there I was at that time, but I knew everything I know now, and I could have avoided all the mistakes. Now, obviously, we don't do that, but the idea is there are a set of parallel universes that exist just like that. And they exist parallel to each other, and each one of them is a different universe compared, or that's created because we made certain decisions differently. Anyway, that's the premise of the show. And it's kind of cool because it let me realize once again a really powerful truth, and that is we create our reality by how we look at it. Again, think of the piece of paper. Think of an opportunity for you, right? Something that's coming up for you. If you look at it with trepidation, like it's hard and you expect to fail, that's what you create. If you look at it with opportunity and I can't wait, that's what you create. So our intention going into stuff is the creative force. Now, I'm reading 2 books. I'm reading one book right now, and I read one a while ago. One was by Lynn McTaggart, who is an investigative journalist, and it's called The Intention Experiment. And she participated in a bunch of experiments over great distances and very rigorous, that demonstrated without question that what we think, what we intend, has an impact. And one of them, I remember one of the experiments really clearly, it was with an astronaut that was in orbit, and it was about the occurrence of cards as they turned over, right? Playing cards. And way beyond a statistical probability, the intention of the astronaut affected a set of playing cards, how they showed up on the Earth. And they tried a whole bunch of different ones. I'm reading another book right now talking about manifesting miracles or things that we don't understand. A miracle, we sort of think of that as something that can't happen. Well, it only can't happen because we think that. And we think that because that is our current understanding of laws of physics. Now, the Bible and other scriptures record miracles. Jesus walked on water. We think, well, that can't happen. Well, it can't happen with our current understanding of stuff. Obviously, there is another understanding of things where it does happen. And I'm not saying that in the context of religion. I'm saying that in the context of we discover stuff all the time. And this particular book I'm reading right now, The Science of Creating Miracles, is written by a Harvard PhD in neuroscience, who's done countless experiments like this intention experiment I quoted in the other book to demonstrate, without question, incontrovertibly, no argument, that our intention, our expectation, our will, our desire creates things, influences how stuff happens. And it's just like opening the doors in that long hallway in dark matter. What we want, and as it turns out, what was behind each door was influenced. They weren't random. It was influenced by what they were thinking. And so by mastering their thinking, they got to come out in the place they wanted. And then there's a whole, and it's not done. It's an ongoing series, et cetera, et cetera. But it really struck me because I've known that. And spiritualists have known it forever, that our intention, our belief creates reality. It's been taught by all religions that faith matters. And we've sort of relegated that to superstition and silliness, but it's not. And now, finally we come along and quantum physics, quantum mechanics demonstrates, and here's the crux, that every future sits before us unrealized until we observe, until we create. Every possibility is right there in front of us. Now, there's a catch, and the catch is some of those future possibilities are a lot more likely than others. If I flip a coin, 50-50 is the likelihood. Okay, if you flip enough coins and you have intention for it always to be heads, you can influence that outcome. And I'm not even putting that forward as a question for debate. It's been demonstrated incontrovertibly hundreds of times in rigorous scientific double-blind experiments. And so here's our choice. Our choice is we can argue with that and say it's stupid, it's not true. Or we can say, wow, what if that is real? What if I can do that? What can I do with that? Now, I said probability that one future versus another one is influenced by our thinking, and it's also influenced by the past. So if I create a life where every day I'm fearful, I'm afraid things won't work out, I'm afraid bad things will happen, I'm afraid, and that is the sequence of events up till today, then the probability of another fearful outcome is really high. Unless I radically change my beliefs and expectations. So the probability of a given outcome, even though all of them are possible before us at any moment, is heavily influenced by what we've been creating in the past. All right, so there's the scientific stuff mixed with woo-woo stuff, but it turns out it's really all the same stuff. The book I'm reading right now, he talks about the conscious unified field. Now, that's funny because Einstein was looking for the unified field theory to marry the electromagnetism and gravity and the strong force and the weak force, which are nuclear forces inside the atom, into one grand theory. And they've done something now called the electro-weak force and unified electromagnetism and the weak force. And there's some theories about gravity and so forth. But we don't have a unified theory, but we know that it exists because they all interact so smoothly and they're not separate. What this guy is showing with his multiple experiments, the guy that wrote this book, is that the conscious unified field is the same field that exists where our consciousness exists, the essence that is us. not just our bodies, but that thing that's really us inside, right? We're the observer all the time. We're watching ourselves be afraid. And if you need an illustration of that, you are you. So if you lose a limb, you lose your leg, are you less you? No, you're still you. Your consciousness isn't in your leg if you lost both legs and both arms. And sadly, there are people like that, or that are paralyzed from the waist down or something. The you is still in there. It's somewhere else. It's something else made out of some other kind of substance. And the idea is you are part of this conscious unified field, and so am I. All right, so enough of that stuff. But it does lay the groundwork for what I want to talk about today, because I called today's episode Fear is Faith's Opportunity. Now, I'm not using faith in the religious sense, although faith includes all that. Faith is an unshakable certainty about what will happen, even though it hasn't happened yet. An unshakable certainty about what will happen, though it hasn't happened yet. That's not wishful thinking. So if I say, well, I hope that happens, right? I hope my sports team wins. I hope I do a good job. I hope I get a new client. I hope I make a lot of money. That's not what I'm talking about. It's not faith. Faith is action in the presence of uncertainty based on an absolute confidence that you can create a certain outcome. That is faith. And when we go after things with real faith, real belief, or certainty that we can do something, then we create the outcome. Now, simple things, it's easy to demonstrate. I don't need to have faith anymore that I can tie my shoe. I've done it a lot of times, and I'm certain of that outcome. Well, how can I be certain? How can I be certain of an outcome when I haven't done it a ton of times, like tying my shoe? That's a really important question, because we're talking about creating a life you love. And when we go through our days each day and think, well, I don't know if I'm going to have a good day or not. I don't know if I'm going to have a good day or not. It depends on what everybody does and says, and the weather and the economy, and, war in Ukraine or in Israel, or other things that are going on, or, it depends on all this stuff. Then what we're doing is we're giving the levers of power to externalities. We do that with other people if they're going to be mad at us, or if we're afraid of a conversation. So fear, when we act in fear, then we give fear, which is a nameless thing. Like, bring me a cup of fear. You can't. So fear is, what is it? Well, let's define it. You can define it a lot of ways. There's all kinds of acronyms: false evidence appearing real, or forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. There's all kinds of definitions like that talk about actions in the face of fear. But fear is just looking at something unknown and expecting something not good, expecting to fail, expecting to get hurt, expecting to be embarrassed or ridiculed. And so we look at a situation, you're going to go up and speak, and you expect to do mediocre at best. That feeling is fear. And there's 100 ways to describe it, but it's that. The expectation of some future failure. And it's a thing that hasn't happened yet. It can be 1 minute from now, or it can be a day from now, or a year from now. People go through life expecting to not do much. I expect to be a failure. I expect not to accomplish much. I don't amount to much. That idea. And because it's like looking at the piece of paper, we've looked at life on the edge and we see a line instead of moving and seeing a whole piece of paper, a whole plane, a two-dimensional object. So we behave and we act and we get results as if it were a line, a very thin, the edge of the paper, and we're limited by that view. Faith is knowing that you can create a positive and that you will create a positive outcome from a situation. So let's call fear that, a belief that something bad's going to happen. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that either because of our habits or because of what others are saying, or because of our previous experience. So our previous experiences, our habits, our thinking habits, or because of what others are saying, or some external circumstance, we combine all those things and we expect failure. We expect a difficult or negative outcome. You notice all those experiences that we've had are in the past. And you know intellectually that the past doesn't have to predict the future because there can always be pivot points. But if we forget that and we allow the trajectory of the past to constrain our thinking in this moment about the future, then we've allowed the past to create the future. Another thing is what others are saying. Oh, you'll never do that. No one's ever done that. You're stupid. Who are you to think you can X? You don't have the skill to do that. You'll never get their attention. You'll never get on stage. You'll never make $1 million. You'll never make 10 million or whatever the goals are. And if we allow the thoughts and voices of others to determine our expectations, then again, like past events, we've allowed these externalities to define the future because we accept them. Another thing is, weather or the economy or other externalities that aren't directly related to the past or other people's opinions. We look around and we say, look at this. No one can start a business in this economy. No one can start a business with as much to do as I have. I have too many kids, responsibilities. I'm already working 2 jobs. Life sucks. I always get the raw deal. Look at what's going on. I mean, come on, just look at that. And so then we allow our looking at life on the edge to see a line. We allow that to determine the future. And the commonality in all those examples, and there's a lot more of them, and you can think of some of them, is that we allow that to define our expectation. Well, since we now know without question that our expectation influences the future. Now, we don't have the ability to wave a pen. I got a pen in my hand, to zip and wave a magic wand and go to, Ollivander's wand shop, Harry Potter, and get a wand and magic. We don't do that. But we have something very close to that. And the very close to that is our belief and intention. The difference is usually in Harry Potter, stuff happens right away. You zap it, a green or a blue or a purple piece of energy goes out and creates whatever outcome. In the world, in the universe, things don't get created like that, usually. Okay, usually it takes some growth time, some assembly. Life is like a piece of IKEA furniture, some assembly required. So even, erosion creating the Grand Canyon, thousands of years. Growing a tree in the yard. I've told my orange tree story a bunch of times. The cactus story that grew sideways to get in the sun. All those things take place over time, but they still take place. So one of the most important things is to remember that growth and development takes time. 6 years ago, it's June 2024. As I'm recording this, it's going to be broadcast in July. But in June 2018, I died. You know the story. I got a fatal illness in both lungs and in the bloodstream of a superbug, and it killed me. I was in a coma for 17 days, and it completely trashed my lungs, just trashed them. And after returning from the dead and being in a coma for 17 days and so forth, I finally I chose to live, and I'm here. That isn't the point. The point is my lungs were trashed. Now, my intention, full on, without hesitation and reservation, I knew I was going to live. I knew I was going to get my lungs back in shape. I did not know if I could get them perfectly in shape, and I asked the doctors if that was possible. What I said is, will I get my lungs back? And they said 2 years to never. Well, we're 6 years on now, and I'm still on some inhaler, corticosteroid. But 75% my lungs are back. I can sing, I perform, I speak. I do get winded. I don't have anywhere near the cardiovascular endurance I used to have. But I've got my lungs back, and it took these years. And the first months were terrifying. I couldn't walk at all. And then I could walk, and just walking across the room was completely, exhausting. And then up the stairs, very slow. And, gradually a little bit further and a little bit further. And on the first day, I did 500 steps on my little Fitbit here, right? That was a day of hallelujah and rejoicing. And then to the end of the block, and then a half a mile, and on and on. And I measured the progress. But all the way through that, I knew, I meditated, I communicated with my lungs, I did all kinds of woo-woo stuff. And gradually, that took place. I influenced them coming back better than I imagined or was predicted that they would. Now, they're not 100%, but they're certainly good. So I do a lot of speaking and singing and so forth, as you know. But my point is, it takes time. So if you want to influence the creation of your life, let's talk about how to do that. Because that's the important thing. You deserve to have a life the way you want it. And fear is the expectation, for whatever reason, our own beliefs, past experience, other voices, or externalities, that we won't get it, that somehow we'll fail. I used to live just buried, swimming, jellied, cooked in fear all the time. I don't feel fear anymore. I know that I can create any outcome I want. And so can you. My knowing that doesn't do any good for you, except hopefully encourage you to realize your own capability. I'm not any more capable than you. I'm not any smarter than you. I assume everybody's at least as smart as I am. That includes you. So when I say my goal is to help 250 million people realize who they really are, what that means is a creator, a divine being, a person who has gifts and talents. You have them. The question is, what are you doing with them? Are you living locked in fear? Are you living accepting the opinions and ideas of others? Are you living with, because you failed in the past, you're going to continue to fail? It won't work. You can't this, can't that. Are you living with that? Because fear, you can get rid of it. Fear is faith's opportunity. Opportunity to do what? Well, first of all, to dismiss the past. The past is what it is. We can't change it. But sitting here, the future is always the undiscovered country, right? It hasn't happened yet. And the whole point of my telling you about all that quantum field stuff is to realize the scientific proof and our inner knowing that the future is unwritten. It's blank. It consists of every possibility. And we live in a download and double-click world, so we want to snap our fingers and have everything change in an instant. It doesn't work like that. But it does work that when you intend, you trust, you believe in yourself, and you take constant, consistent, motivated action. I use a phrase, direct, consistent, motivated action. Now, if I want to write music, and I do, I have 91 songs in commercial release and 6 more underway. No, not 6, 5 more underway. Doesn't matter. Bunch more underway. I know. Consistent, direct, consistent, motivated action will get those songs written, recorded, and released. I have 6. That's where the 6 is. 6 books outlined. For the next 2 or 3 years, they're not going to be here tomorrow. But direct, consistent, motivated action. So your opportunity and mine is to turn off the voices. What voices? The voices of the past, the voices of mistakes and errors, the voices of incrimination or guilt or shame. Forgiving yourself is a road to power. Forgiving others is a road to power. Forgiving doesn't mean pretending. It just means choosing to no longer allow events of the past to have energy in the present. Choose to no longer be angry at yourself or frustrated or fearful or shameful or anything else. Do what you can to fix things and then move forward. Faith is the certainty that you can create things, even though they're not present yet. Now, I'm raising my voice in both encouragement and absolute certainty for you. You can create anything you want, but you can't create it unless you believe and you take direct, consistent, motivated action. Now, that takes practice, or at least it did for me. I didn't turn off my doubts all at once. I didn't turn off the voices of the past all at once. It took me a lot of therapy in some cases and a lot of work to turn off the negative voices of the past, of family and friends and those that were angry at things that had happened in my life, stuff, mistakes I'd made. And I lived in that guilt for a long time. I lived in the feeling of fear. I can't do this. It's too late. It won't. But I don't have that. And so my experience has taught me that you can eliminate those voices. And fear it just is a feeling. And so notice that you have it and choose right this minute. I am going to take steps every day to eliminate that fear, to face positively, to turn the paper and look at the whole sheet instead of just the edge. Now, my mission this year is to help 250 million people discover this, who you really are. You're free. You're capable. You're powerful. You have genius. You can have the ultimate life if you want it right now. And the path is to turn off the noise from the past. Turn off the noise from those around you. Turn off the noise from the economy and the stuff there. Focus on your own creation. Now, all I do in my work is help people realize their own genius and capability. Sometimes it's really specific. Write this book or create this product or do this or that to build your business. But the fundamental thing is to truly internalize your certainty of a future outcome or your faith in yourself, your faith in your future, your faith in creating the future you desire from that infinite range of possibilities that lies right now, right in front of you. So I offer several things. One is go to www.yourultimatelife.ca. There are keys there that will help you, 5 master keys to create your ultimate life. They don't cost any money, but they will cost some work. They are the spark for change. I have books. I have programs. Why? Because my commitment is to help 250 million people. And so I offer this podcast and everything else to encourage you to do the things that I have done and helped others do. I'm not magic. I am committed. The next thing I invite you to do is to reach out. I'd love to get to know you because my getting to know people and getting to see your beautiful faces is a treat and a pleasure and a treasure for me. You're a divine being, and I love seeing you and hearing you and seeing your divine capability and so forth. And if I can help you in some way, I'd love to. The other thing I love to do with this show and my LA Talk Radio show is to tell the stories of others or have you tell your story. I meet so many people that have stories of resilience and overcoming and creation, and I want to be a megaphone for you to share your greatness, story, and opportunity. So I encourage you there to reach out for that also. If there's something I can do besides this massive amount of love and encouragement, I would love to know it. My books, I have 19 of them. They're all on Amazon. They're available for you there too. Every episode is me and a guest talking about your possibility, your story, your overcoming. You can do it, but it won't happen unless you start, and it won't happen unless we learn to replace fear, which is the expectation of future negativity, with faith, which is the certainty of future magnificence. I know you can do it. I'm here to help. Let's create your ultimate life.
Open your heart and this time around,
Thank you for listening to today's episode. We hope that you take it deeply into your heart and decide for yourself how you can create anything you desire. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to this podcast and share it with your friends. As always, we'd love to hear your feedback and topic suggestions. Until tomorrow, this is Your Ultimate Life with host Kellan Fluckiger.
Stand with your heart in the sky and your feet on